Hey Lars, thanks for doing this. I was happy that you were putting this together, and I'm kind of going off the cuff, so feel free to use as little or as much as this as you want to. I started working at Vulcan Video around 2007, and a kind of aimless point in my life where I had finished college, had a real job, lost said real job, but didn't really want to become an adult, I think, just yet, although I was 27. I should probably also say my name is Sellari, and I worked at the Vulcan Video on South Congress off Elizabeth for a few years, a little while ago. I got my job at Vulcan after the wonderful Joe Shivers offered me a position there, or asked me to apply for a position there. And I think I got the job by wildly and roughly talking about how Tim Burton had probably died and been replaced in a kind of Paul McCartney scenario after the kind of all right film Big Fish, that they just replaced his like Robert Smith looking corpse with a look-alike and just kept cranking out, the Tim Burton brand. And I think that made Joe and Kristen laugh, and so I got the job there. And I think they instantly regretted giving me a job in the next week, probably month. And it's not that I was a terrible employee, it's that Vulcan tended to attract a certain type of person who was creative, maybe sometimes in a rut, but maybe just where they wanted to be, and fiercely independent like the store, which from a managerial standpoint makes that job impossible. And I love you, Joe and Kristen, and I'm sorry. But the magic of their jobs and Vulcan Video in general is that it was like a commune for creativity, for people who believed in this ideal and who did this thing that should, from a group of that many strong-minded people, should never have worked, and it did. And that's, again, to the credit of Joe, but and also just the spirit of Vulcan Video. It would be easy to say that everyone who worked there was suffering from some kind of arrested development, but I think we all believed in this dream, right? This dream that was Vulcan Video, that if you were, again, independent enough, if you were smart enough, if you were creative or funnier enough, it was just a matter of time before you got your shot and the world recognized what a lost genius you were. And I would say that the difference between most people who worked there and the fantastic overlooked films that lined all our shelves was the filmmakers actually did something about it. So I just think that looking back on that store and that company, it was a comet, clearly. It was an impossible thing when I started working there, and the kind of rise of Netflix and Redbox and all the things that should have put an independent video store, put it away, but it didn't. And it's because of those people who were dedicated to coming there. It's because of the people who were dedicated to working there and giving people something different than what they could find in a theater, what they could find at a Blockbuster, what they could find in a computer-generated algorithm. And that was a really important aspect of Vulcan, and something I think people took a lot of pride in, was the ability to have even the kind of most mundane moviegoer come in and go, well, I don't know, I like Bad Boys and Bad Boys 2, and we'd be able to find them a whole new foray of movies and experiences that scratched that itch for them, but ultimately made them a more active viewer and buff for cinema, as it were. With Vulcan being a comet, it was a comet that lasted 35 years, and I think that some people looked at it as commonplace because an impossible thing was able to happen for so long. But really, that was the way I thought of Austin from that time and for a long time. The independent, the creative, and all those kind of things were rewarded in this kind of hotbed that was just an insane breeding ground for beautiful and unique businesses and ideas and people. I will sorely miss that store. I will sorely miss just the idea of it existing. When somewhere like Austin loses a place like Vulcan, it loses part of its DNA too. And I think what made Austin so special are the love and sweat and fierce spirit of places like Vulcan Video, to sort of defy the norms, to do what was passionate to them, and as it turns out, passionate to a lot of other people. And without that, again, we lose sort of another piece of history of Vulcan and of Austin. The things we did at that store, though, defaulting back to Arrested Development, I don't think can be matched and could never exist or be recreated, in part because of the organic nature of the way things happened. Sometimes when you put people in a little weird box, like, being a video store clerk with a rental system from the 80s, still booting up off a MS-DOS computer, who are both extremely talented and also creatively starved to some extent, and feeling like they have something to prove, you come up with these amazing little diamonds hidden within an otherwise kind of not necessarily mundane setting, but a mundane idea. So our customer notes were probably my favorite thing about that store, that all ranged from again, board and creative employees writing things like, my favorite one was, you just pulled it up and it's this guy and his customer notes were just in all caps, "I'm dying for you to fuck off." Other ones said things like, "I like your boyfriend's cookie duster, Juno." And I think, again, those kind of things encapsulated the sort of attitude and spirit of Vulcan Video. God damn it, we love that you're here. Thank you for the beer, so you're going to get free movies. And I can say that now because we did that in an interview that Joe totally told us to kill. But you could totally bring in beer, and we give you free movies. But yeah, it was that kind of, again, love-hate relationship with what you were doing and where you were at the time, whether it was customers or just boxing and putting away movies. I think it was also this kind of interesting life pulse through the city. I mean, in some way, movies are the common denominator in most every human. I don't know many humans who go, well, no, you know what, I don't like movies. I don't like music. I'd prefer to read the sheet music than listen to music, or, read a synopsis of a film rather than see it. So movies were this kind of great equalizer. And we got such amazing people through that store, and I met so many good friends and so many good people working there. There's this 7-foot giant that worked at a candy store who also DJ'd 45 records that would come in. That was like, that didn't seem as weird as like the mom who just like was fed up with Redbox and decided to come start a membership at Vulcan. But that was the kind of like ebb and flow of that store and the type of people that would come in and out of it, and just sort of, again, add to the character and to the fabric of Vulcan and why Vulcan was so important. Richard Linklater would come in there. Who else? Whatever production was in town, essentially, at some point would make their way into Vulcan to find out what that place was all about. And it was the one, like, often it was the one area in our lives as employees there where we could exclude someone from who was probably making, millions of dollars a year or doing exactly what we wished we were doing. But it was the one time we got to act cool about it. What else about that store? I think one thing that I will always miss about Vulcan, whether it was the people that came in there or the people that I worked with, was a pretty definite sense of community, right? And it felt, again, very organic at the time, but just like that comet that took 35 years to like start and leave, once it's gone, you really miss it, and you really understand how much it meant to you and to the people around you. I can't think of a job that I've had since Vulcan, and even probably before, where I would work 8 hours, stay at the store for another 8 hours, with everyone I had just finished shifts with, or with everyone I had just rented movies to, sitting outside the front of the store all night, drinking hot beer out of Kristen's trunk, and going home, sleeping for 4 hours before you went and did it all again. Because that job and those people, I don't know, were that important and felt that connected. That again, I don't experience too often. And it could only happen at a place like Vulcan, I think. Oh, what else? I don't know, Lars, that's all I got, man. I hope some of that's usable. If it's not, if there's something you'd rather me like shorten or whatever, just tell me and I can do this thing all over again. Again, man, thanks for doing this.